جلستنا اليوم مع كارلوس غصن رح نستضيفه عبر الأقمار الصناعية.
Good evening. Good afternoon to everyone. I have been told that the speech is going to be in English because there are many participants from different countries. So what I've been asked is to talk about the role of large companies in supporting women's initiatives and projects of development and social nature.
May I interrupt you, Mr. Carlos Wilson?
Please.
May I interrupt? Let me introduce you first. You are a global leader, so you
Okay.
you need, and we need to introduce you in our way. So, كارلوس غصن وجه من وجوه لبنان اللامعة، شخصية عالمية رائدة في القطاع الخاص، قيادة راكمت النجاحات العالمية وتميزت في قدرته على استيعاب الفوارق الثقافية المختلفة والمتعددة بتقاليدها ومفاهيمها وتحويلها إلى ميزة تفاضلية. قيادة من أبرز ميزاتها التركيز على العامل البشري وطاقاته كمكون أساسي للتغيير والتطوير وجودة الأداء. ولد في البرازيل، عاش فيها، انتقل بعدها إلى لبنان حيث أمضى دراسته في بيروت ليكملها في فرنسا، وهو حائز على شهادة بكالوريوس في الهندسة من إيكول بوليتكنيك دو باريس وإيكول دي مين دو باريس. كلكم تعرفوا كلكم سيرة كارلوس غصن، بيقضي تلت وقته بفرنسا، تلت وقته باليابان، تلت وقته عم بيبرم على المشاريع يلي بيترأسها. كارلوس غصن، صباح الخير. بيروت اشتقت لك إذا فينا نقول بالعربي. باسمي وباسم الحضور رح نحكي شوية إنجليزي we will talk in English. باسمي وباسم الحضور, in my name and the name of the audience and the organizers, بحب رحب فيك بمنتدى المرأة العربي تحت عنوان Women Entrepreneurship. رح انتقل للإنجليزي. There is an international attention given to the economic importance of women. Position of women in companies, countries is seen as an economical viability. The OCDE considers gender equality that strengthened long-term economic development. World Bank has made gender action plan in 2007. Goldman Sachs talks about women economics. Closing the gap, employment between men and women is a guarantee of growth. Do you agree that gender is a business issue, a social issue, a political issue, or is it really business? The question is yours.
Shall we? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador Turk. And it's a pleasure to speak before this distinguished audience. I obviously would have liked to join you in Beirut. Particularly, I've been told that you have, as usually, a very nice weather and 18 degrees. And I can tell you I'm very sad to be able to talk to you from Amsterdam, where the temperature, unfortunately, is 0 degrees and it is raining. This being said, the topic of today is a very important topic. And I'm going to put it straight forward that gender equality is a business issue. It's also a social issue, and it's an issue about personal values. But what I'm going to develop, particularly, it's a business issue. And I would like to start by covering it in the Arab world, because I've done a little bit of my homework about what is the situation in the Arab world. And as usually, we can say that the bottle is a little bit half full and half empty. I'm going to start with the bottle half full. In many countries already around the world, but particularly in many countries in the Arab world, women now outnumber men in universities. In Lebanon, the latest statistics I got is that women make up 54% of college students. We see similar patterns in Kuwait, in the United Arab Emirates, in the Palestinian territories. In all these places, women are graduating from the universities at the same rates as women in the United States and Europe, when they make already about 60% of the student body. These achievements are remarkable in the Middle East, and I'm delighted to see that women have an equal voice in higher education already in Lebanon and in many of the countries of the Arab world. After all, today's college students, tomorrow's graduate students, researchers, interns, entry-level professionals are the future. Thanks to education, more women are ready to fill the pipeline of high-value jobs in engineering, in medicine, in finance, and in many fields of technology. This means many of them will possess the skills to become middle and senior managers, and they will become chief executive officers, board members, heads of states, university deans, and diplomats. Unfortunately, women's participation in the workforce is still dramatically lower than male participation in many parts of the world. Despite impressive degrees and knowledge, many women are not entering or are leaving promising careers. This disconnect between education and workforce participation is where the bottle is half empty, and the imbalance is especially pronounced in the Arab world. In Lebanon, women make up a quarter of the workforce. They make up merely 8% of legislators and similar numbers of senior officials or managers. On average, in the Arab world, women make up less than 20% of the total workforce, compared to about half in the United States and nearly 60% in Europe. This is an obvious waste of human capital and a lot of missed opportunities. Ultimately, it is surely a slowing down of the development of the region. But we should not single out the Arab world, and here I'm going to talk about my industry, the car industry. As you know, we are big employers and we are big investors. In the case of Renault-Nissan, today we have about 500,000 employees in the world, and we have every year 8,500,000 customers. Obviously, most of them in terms of employees are women, and we have big differences in function of the countries. But particularly, and the most importantly, is our customers are mainly women. And the question that we are dealing here is that in our industry there is no women CEOs, there is almost no board members, and very few senior executives. And I'm going to take the example of Japan. I will talk about France a little bit later, where in Japan you have about 800,000 people working for the auto industry. A particular population of these people are very important for us. They are called product managers. They are the people who have overall responsibility for a new car model. There are hundreds of them between the different competitors. Well, from these hundreds, people who create cars and supervise cars, only 3 of them are women. And I'm proud to say that the 3 women existing as product managers in Japan are all Nissan employees. And I'm going to mention one of them, and her name is Mie Minakuchi, and she has been the object, I think, of a report from Bloomberg recently. She's a chief product specialist of one particular Nissan car, which is called the Nissan Note. And one of the first decisions she has taken, to the skepticism of the people around her in Nissan, is that she spent a lot of time to make the doors of the car open more easily. As you know, usually her male colleagues talk about engines and transmission and handling and safety, and not a lot of attention was paid to very pragmatic details like how easily the door opened. Interestingly, a particular focus has been given under her influence, and this is today the top single function that people like about the car. And also the Note, this particular car is today our top seller car in Japan. That's a real car about a real performance with a real person, where we can make a direct connection between nominating a person and the specific results. This story illustrates what can happen when you put the right person, and in this case it was a woman, in charge. It also points to how much power women in our industry carry in the marketplace. As you know, from the statistics we know, in the United States, women purchase about 60% of all new cars. They influence 85% of all auto purchases. Basically, they have veto power over the man in their homes whenever it comes to choosing a car. So given this influence, we need to make cars that appeal to women. And the best way to do that is to have women deeply involved from design and engineering to production and sales at decision-making positions. So, and here there is a specific efforts which is not linked to any value, but links to the fact that the business is driving you to go for gender parity, gender equality, and more empowerment of women in our business.
What are the
next week, now I'm going to give you an example, we'll launch, yeah. Yes.
What are the actions as a global leader, and you know that that Nissan Renault now is a case study in all the leadership programs. What are the practical actions that you took and your company as a leader to enhance this performance and this inclusive womanship in your industry?
Well, you know, if you want me to talk about specifics,
yes,
I'm going to mention two actions.
We
the
need
first
practical
one is
action as a leader today, as a head of an industry which has succeeded.
Very simple.
What are the actions that, and what are your message to these leaders, to these entrepreneurs, women today, in order to enhance the women workforce and society also?
Two specific action. I'm not saying that it's everything, but I'm giving you just two examples. The first one is when you go out for hiring, we practice quota.
So this
for example, if I need 100 engineers, very simple. If I need 100 engineers to hire in Japan or in France, I say it's very simple. It's going to be 40% of women, 60% of men. If you don't have 40% of women, you cannot close the hiring. So quota in hiring is a very essential element because you are filling the pipeline with talents.
Are you for
second action? Yeah.
Let me interrupt Mr. Ghosn, because this is a very problem. The quota is now a very debatable. Are you for enforcing the quota as a law? Because in your interviews you said that I am for quotas in the bottom line, but on the C-suite we don't need quotas. So where do you stand in this? Because it's very debatable. And some enterprises or corporates say, let's leave it to the discretion of the leader or the conseil d'administration, so they do a sort of self-regulatory policy. So where do you stand on these two points?
Very simple. I am not for legislating. I am more for company by company taking decision and outlining decision to the public. I am for quotas for a very simple reason, is if you do not give yourself quotas, nothing's going to happen. People are going to be telling you why they were not able to reach the qualitative objectives, while when you have quotas, well, no action can be closed without the quota being reached. Every single time we make a campaign for hiring in France, in the United States, in Japan, category by category, engineers, marketers, lawyers, manufacturers, communicators, we have quotas. If you don't get 40%, 50%, 30%, whatever it is, of women, you cannot close your campaign. And I can tell you that the numbers, the results have been extremely positive, both for Renault and Nissan, because we have been moving a lot our percentage up in terms of women in management and women particularly in the field of engineering, which is a very important field, used to be considered mainly for men. But let me mention the second very important specifics. In every company, particularly in our company where we have 500,000 employees, and in the 500,000 employees you have about 50,000 management positions. Well, on every single management position you have a succession plan. Well, every year we review the succession planning of all the management. And on every single position of these, there should be at least one woman. You cannot close the succession planning on the 50,000 jobs without having a woman on it. So you're going to tell me, yeah, but it's maybe different from one country to the other. We see it. For example, in Russia or in countries like Slovenia or Eastern Europe, practically 50% of our management is women. It's part of the culture. In Japan, we have much harder time to have women into the succession planning. So we are a little bit forcing the organization to prepare women to take positions in management. So two concrete measures: quota in hiring and women in succession planning reviewed every year. If you don't have a woman in your succession planning, you cannot close the succession planning. It's an open issue until you can identify a person who can be your executive vice president, your vice president, your general managers, and so on.
So you think that by following this policy, women will arrive to the C-suite? Because your numbers, if I go back to your numbers and Renault, you only have 3 women in the Conseil d'Administration. In your committee executive women, you have 2 on 11, and Comité de Direction, you have 3 on 29. So the numbers are very specific. So can we dream having a CEO woman of Nissan, Renault, and next years maybe?
Well, I don't know. It doesn't depend on.
Are you encouraging this in your succession plan?
They elect the CEO.
Nevertheless,
let me tell you one thing. Let me tell you one thing. The car industry is particularly extremely unbalanced gender management, because yes, I have 2 members of my executive committee made by 9 people who are women, 3 members of the board, etc. But what you need to know is that there are 0 other car manufacturers who have even 1 woman in their executive committee.
They don't have
by having 2 women in the executive committee. No, but I mean, I don't qualify for that. What I'm saying is, even the numbers look small for you. Yes. They are already a huge advance compared to in our industry, compared to the car industry.
What are the barriers that impeach the women from arriving? Is it cultural?
The barriers are multiple. There are a lot of cultural barriers, yes, because we can see that it's more difficult in some countries than others to make the promotion of gender parity. So it is culturally linked to the culture. But it's also linked to the fact that in many countries, a lot of women who have a lot of talent and who have a lot of capability lack the confidence in themselves to even go for the opportunity whenever they are here. And this is where mentorship in the company is very important, because women, like any other human being, needs to be nurtured. You need to give them confidence that there is nothing wrong about being a leader and being a woman in cultures where traditionally the leadership position has been taken by men. So the talent is here, the characters are here. What we need is give women more confidence in themselves. And again, I don't think women in Lebanon needs any more confidence, I think they are very confident. But if you go to Japan, for example, or you go in some countries where the culture is a big handicap for women, you need special programs to push people with a lot of talent to say, yeah, I can go for this one, there is nothing wrong, and I'm going to compete, and I'm going to make a difference.
Yeah.
And so the mentorship program is important, and it has to be done by people who really care for developing gender parity.
Yes. You have a particular experience in Japan where you succeeded in two things by creating a cross-functional teams and get rid of this the keratsu system. But there's a paradox. When I read all the interviews that you have done, there is always you were very much sensitive to create relationships, to trust and respect and good relationships in your company. And on the other side, you did a huge thing, which was very courageous, to cut or to get rid of the seniority system. How do you explain this paradox? For me, it's a paradox.
Well, no, it's not so much. In fact, at the end of the day, respect for people starts with the truth. Mm-hmm. This is the biggest aspect of respect is not lying to people. That's number one, is tell things the way you see them. I'm not saying to say it in a provocative manner, but say the reality as it is and not hide the truth of what has to be done and why it has to be done. That's number one. That's why when the seniority system, for example, in Japan, was a handicap for the performance of the company, I said it very clearly. I said I'm not against a particular attribute of the Japanese culture. I respect the Japanese culture, but I'm going to remove from the Japanese culture anything that's going to be a handicap to the development of the company or to the well-being of the company. And seniority system that I consider as a handicap for young people, because it means that no matter how brilliant you are, no matter how hard you work, no matter how successful you are, if you are below a certain age, there are certain jobs you will never get. And this is for me a discrimination against young people. And this is the way I explained it. So I have dismantled the seniority system in Japan, not out of lack of respect for the Japanese culture, and the Japanese people know how much I respect their culture. I've been living in Japan for 13 years. I'm well known in Japan, and people know that everything I dismantled based on facts and for a specific purpose, and it was not lack of respect for the culture of Japan. And by the way, it has been copied in many other companies who today are doing much better by involving more young people and more women. So what I want to say is, from time to time, you have to challenge existing practices. Mm-hmm. You have to challenge existing traditions. But every time you challenge them, respect implies that you explain why you challenge them, and that you're not challenging them by caprice or because you don't like them. You challenge them only because you are going for a higher good. You are going for something which is absolutely valuable, and in my case, it was saving the company that I had responsibility for. But the only thing I would like to mention for you is gender parity and women empowerment is an issue and an opportunity which is a business opportunity, but it's also a social and a human element, because I met a lot of people who are CEOs of companies and who care about also gender parity. So they have objective reasons to care for, but they have also personal reasons, because we all have our own life stories. And in your life story, you have been beyond your own will confronting this issue of lack of gender parity, and we have all been affected by this issue, because we all have a mother, we have sisters, we have daughters, and obviously we all have been through experiences where we were shocked by I would say, the segregation that has taken place, where a gifted woman did not get the job that she deserved only because she was a woman. So we have both influence. We have the influence of business and the rationality, but from the other side, we have also the influence of facts in life that we have been through and make us extremely sensitive to this issue.
Yeah. You talk a lot about leadership in crisis, and you say that a leader in these times is always when you face a crisis. So how does Carlos Ghosn cope with crisis? First question. The second one is the crisis, the external conditions shapes the leadership?
Yeah. Ambassador, you know very well, as I know, that we don't care about leaders whenever there is no crisis. We don't care. I mean, you can have any leader in a situation where everything's okay. No, frankly, when everything's going okay, you don't care about who's your leader. You don't care so much. And it doesn't matter. Frankly, it doesn't matter. But we have seen a lot of very mediocre people going very well through situation where there was no crisis, there was no problem, because situation had been prepared before them. And frankly, you don't care. Leadership matters only in a situation of crisis. Now you're paying attention. Now you're paying a lot of attention to who is leading you. When a company is in turmoil, you pay attention to leaders. When a country is in turmoil, you pay attention to leaders. This is where leaders matter. So by definition, leadership is created and wanted and observed in situation of crisis. And nobody's born leader, as you know. People just measure to the situation. You have a crisis, you need a leader, you fabricate one. I mean, you bring somebody, and most of the people stand up to the challenge and solve the problem. Most of them, not all of them. From time to time, you have failures. But the point which is very important is leadership matters only in situation of crisis. And in situation of crisis, a lot of people who are common people end up showing up as great leaders just because they stood up to the challenge.
Mm-hmm. So how does your experience did shape your view of the world?
Oh, this is very generic. This is very generic question. So I can let me tell you one thing. The first thing is that there is no problem that created by man who cannot be solved by man, man or woman, by the way. But which means that I faced a lot of situation. I faced a lot of situation which looked really extremely complicated, practically impossible to solve, and in every single case, with people of goodwill, problems were solved, and often with simple solutions, common sense solution, and a lot of determination. That's number one. The second one I would like to tell you from my own experience is often diversity, because we're talking about one aspect of diversity today, which is gender parity. We're talking about men, women, but diversity has also other aspects. Cultural diversity, age diversity, education diversity. That means we work in companies where we have to have engineers and communicators and lawyers and marketers work together, and they are a very diverse group of people having different kind of training, and they come from different countries, and they speak different language, and they have different ages. So diversity used to be considered in the past as a handicap for performance. Today, more and more diversity appears, from my own experience, on the contrary, as a guarantee that because you have diversity, you're going to get better solution. Probably it's going to be harder to get to this solution because people are so diverse, and to put them together and let them talk about one particular subject, it may be difficult. But when you get them around one particular subject and they are working together, the fact that they are coming from different background, and you have men and women and young and older, well, you're going to get a much better solution. You're going to get something which is much more sustainable. And this is valid in terms of products. This is valid in terms of policies. This is valid in terms of services. This is valid for every single problem or opportunity we're facing. So these are some of the elements I can tell you, I can share with you about my own experience. And we in Renault-Nissan, we've made diversity as one of the main value of action. And you're going to say, oh, what does it mean? You have 4 large groups, automotive group in the world, selling more than 8 million cars and having more than $100 billion of revenue. 4. You have Toyota, Volkswagen, General Motors, and us. Toyota is a Japanese company, very monocultural. Volkswagen is a German company, very monocultural. General Motors is an American company, I would say rather monocultural. But Renault-Nissan are a bunch of people coming from everywhere. There are Japanese and French and Brazilian and Lebanese and Americans and Russians and Chinese. And we're building a group which is extremely diverse, competing against extremely monolithical organization, but wanting to show that with diversity, you're going to create much better solutions.
Is it a new model of leadership, of global leadership?
Well, you know, it is a new model. Now, does it work? It's only the performance and the results you get who show if your system is better than other systems. Because at the end of the day, in business, it's not a question of discussion of ideas. It's a question of discussion of performances. What you compare is what is your growth level, what is the level of profitability, what is the return. Yeah, you have very objective performance indicators who are going to be the proof or not to the fact that you are running a superior system or an average system or a mediocre system.
So practically speaking, Mr. Ghosn, what are the tips, if we can say tips, that you can give today to our audience, women and men? Some tips.
Well, I mean, I want to repeat what you said from the beginning. That means I'm a deep believer in the power of diversity, and particularly the first and the most elementary one is gender parity. I think by promoting gender parity at every level of society, businesses, organization, non-profit organization, governments, cities, administration, schools, everywhere, we're going to get fundamentally a better society, better businesses, better companies, more growth, and more value creation. And in order to do that, not only you need people who are convinced that this is right, but you need to develop specific actions in your own organization in order for this not to be only a wishful thinking, but to be really a tool by which you are transforming reality.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosn. We're going to have two questions. We don't have time.
Thank you. Mr. Ghosn, I was really honored to be at Sorbonne 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago to see you talking about what you have done. And today only I wish you talk about your Lebanese experience, which was really to evoke the Lebanese experience you have done at Université Saint-Joseph, creating something really exceptional, which is providing the road security. And this was, I think, you have done a big job. And with this, you are going really to try to make less accident in the whole Middle East. How the women can collaborate in this project in Université Saint-Joseph? Let's be very far from Japan and France. Okay, thank you.
Second.
Yeah. No, I think you're mentioning an initiative that we have taken to create a training that is in fact centered at l'USJ, at Université Saint-Joseph, in which Lebanese people and people from the Arab world, we have Moroccan, we have Egyptians, we have people coming from different countries, being trained on safety, promotion of safety on the roads. You know that the Middle East is one of the most dangerous regions in terms of fatal accidents around the cars. And frankly, most of them can be reduced only by promoting education and promoting some preventive measures in each one of the country. And what we're trying to do here is making sure that the knowledge and the training exists at a minimum level into the Middle East. And as you know, this program is working very well because today we have about 30 people training, and every year we're going to have more people coming And I'm very glad that it has been successful. Now, when it comes to safety, women play a very important role because, as you know, men and women are different in a way that the mentality and the way they look at things are different, which is great because it gives a complementary way to look at the world. And one particular element in the way women look at the reality is they are more preoccupied with safety. They are more preoccupied passive safety and active safety, which means that in our own organization we have many women working into the particularly building safer systems and developing safety features. I cannot tell you statistically how many women we have in this program, but I know that there are many of them. I cannot tell you from the 30 how many women, but we are encouraging a lot of women participation into this program.
I'm Tanya Musallim from BLC Bank. BLC Bank is a leader in women economic empowerment because we are the only bank in the MENA region that has launched a full-fledged program to empower women. So thank you for actually all the details you gave us. You established the business case. You gave us hints on how you did in your company actually to enhance women participation. And yet we still see that they are not really present at the top level. So I would like really, if you can give us in a nutshell your recommendations for leaders, business leaders, especially company leaders, in the Middle East, in the MENA region, because we do have additional constraints, some of them are cultural. So what would be really your practical recommendations for the leaders listening to you here to enhance women participation?
In the C-suite.
At top level.
You know, I think it takes at top level. You know, I think, as you know, it takes one of the most difficult decisions that a business leader has to take or a board has to take is to decide who's going to be the next leader of the organization. It takes years. It takes years. So, and often the number of candidates is very limited because there are so many qualities and experiences you're requiring from the person who is going to end up taking the job. The problem that we are facing today is because we did not do enough work into promoting enough women into the intermediary positions and into the upper position. When we come to the top of the pyramid, where nobody is ready. You have a lot of talented people, but talented people enough are not going to make a successful people. You need talent and you need a minimum level of experience if you don't want to have a surprise. So my own, but you're saying, okay, what should we do? Well, what we should do is when we have talented women in the organization, give them tough jobs. Give them tough jobs. Let them go where, but yes, that means we shouldn't start to say, no, you know what, he's young, we cannot give him a tough job, she's a woman, we cannot give her a tough job. No, you should absolutely treat people equally. And the way we train our leaders is whenever we have a problem somewhere, we send people with high potential, we put them in front of the problem. Some of them fail, but for those who are being successful, well, they're going to be gaining a lot of stature inside the organization and a lot of credibility. So the first and most important things, give women who have talent and who have personality, give them tough challenges so they can prove themselves. And when they prove themselves, they are obvious candidates for top jobs. But if women are limited to staff positions and warmed up and sugar-coated jobs, they will never make the demonstration that they are capable to lead the organization, particularly in situation of crisis. So what we are doing here is, and particularly the most simple things is, when you have tough jobs, you have the tough, but in our case, we have always tough jobs because there is always somewhere where things are not going well. It's a country or it's a product or it is whatever, it's a technical problem somewhere. So you need to have the list of the high potential women, from the other side, the list of the most difficult tasks, and make sure you are assigning women to these jobs because you know that a lot of them will be successful, and when they are successful, they're ready.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Ghosn, for being with us. Vous êtes une fierté pour le Liban. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Thank you. Thank you.